Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much. You know, Jim, you did a wonderful job of running through a number of the big ideas that have come out of these better government competitions over the years, but he actually forgot one, because I was at this event, it was either last year or 2 years ago, I can't remember anymore, it's all kind of a blur, but it was whichever event you did that had to do with reentry and criminal justice. Was that 2 years ago? And they're sitting there talking about, might have been one of the award winners, in fact, that had developed a charter school inside a prison as a way to help men and women get to their high school degree so that they could not only take the knowledge associated with the high school degree, but the certificate and the credential associated with that, and go out and see if they could use it to get a job and move forward with their lives. And I literally was sitting in that event texting the Secretary of Public Safety, Dan Bennett, who happened to be there, and I said, that sounds like a really good idea to me. What do you think? And Dan, being the smart Secretary of Public Safety that he was, texted me back and said, Governor, I think that's a great idea. So we created the Boston School for Reentry, which is operating over at the Boston Pre-Release Center in Dorchester, and I was over there a few weeks ago to meet the graduating class, and it was a group of men who, almost all of them had just walked away from school when they were about somewhere between the age of 12 and 16, and this school actually got them something they never ever thought they would get, which was a high-set degree, which is the 5 tests you have to take and pass now. That's kind of the step up from the traditional GED. And all of them, because they had that degree, had been able to translate it into a work-study program that they were working somewhere between 30 and 50 hours a week, depending upon who they were, and we're going to be able to take that and turn it into a job when they finished and wrapped up their term. And yet another idea that came out of the Better Government competition in real time, delivered by Pioneer Institute to the Commonwealth of Mass. Jim, this organization, this event, for years and years and years has been a source of wonderful ideas and terrific innovation. And I just want to, on behalf of the Commonwealth, thank you for your leadership and your work in so many different spaces, along with your team. Now, Jim did mention my dad more than once, so some guy named Charlie Baker Sr. I do want to point out that on Wednesday, my dad will be turning 89 years old. He remains the smartest guy in the family by a wide margin. Smartest guy in the family. None of us were ever as smart as our mom. But I always thought you were a pretty bright light, Dad, and it's great to have you as part of our family at the ripe old age of 89. Happy birthday. And Brian Shortsleeve, what can I say about you, Brian? Let me try this. Sometimes the best ideas seem really obvious after the fact, but it's funny how no one ever saw them before. And there are a lot of instances of that have come up over the course of Brian's time at the MBTA. But my favorite is before Brian's arrival at the T had never had a conversation with state government about the things that state government buys and that the T buys, which are the same things. Now, the T is pretty big size, pretty big organization, but frankly, it's pretty small compared to a lot of the stuff the Commonwealth buys, because we end up buying a lot of stuff in conjunction with cities and towns. So one of the things Brian said when he got to the T was, well, you guys ever bother to talk to the state about what they pay for stuff that we both buy? Maybe they get a better deal and we could save some money. Pretty interesting idea. turns out that state government gets a better deal on, well, pretty much everything. And as a result, the T is literally saving millions and millions of dollars simply by buying stuff off state contracts. But my favorite one most recently, and there are many of these, was the state pays 60 cents less for diesel fuel than the T does. And as a result of that, the ferry service, which comes in right out there on the other side of that small ship, the ferry service will be spending $4.5 million less on diesel fuel this year than it spent last year. And to quote that old joke, once upon a time, Brian has 1 million of those. I mean, he could go all day long with those. And I also want to spend just a quick second to thank Joe Coughlin for all the work you've done in what I call the older adult space. Once you turn 60, the whole idea of calling this seniors or aging, no, it's just older adults, okay? And I know Secretary Bonner, that's not exactly the way I'm supposed to talk about it, but I just I can't bring myself to call it anything other than that. But the work you've done at MIT at the Aging Lab is extraordinary, and I really appreciate your willingness to serve as part of Alice's engagement on how to think differently about aging and about older Americans. And it's nationally renowned work, and we are so lucky to have you here in our backyard and your willingness to help us out on this issue, and I want to thank you very much for that. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't also say how much I appreciate the fact that for the past 29 and a half years, Lauren Baker has put up with all my nonsense, and especially with this crazy time that I've spent in public life. And my favorite comment about all this is when we got that recent report that said I had a 75% favorability rating, highest in the country of any governor and all the rest, I came home that night and I said, yeah, well, you can clap about it. I think it's kind of cool. When I came home that night, I said, hey, honey, I got a 75% favorability rating. It said, 75, that's great, honey, that's a C. Boom. And before I say a few words about older Americans, I do want to take this opportunity to thank the folks who are serving you and us tonight. And I would ask you all to give them a round of applause. Because they are patiently waiting for me to finish so that they can get back to work. Let me say this. When I interviewed people to serve as Secretary of Elder Affairs in our administration, I asked them a couple of questions about their background, and then I asked them the most important question of all, which is, have you read Atul Gawande's book, Being Mortal? And if they answered yes, I would then ask them some questions about the book to figure out if they'd actually really read the book or not, or just read maybe a book review of it or never even heard of it. And then if they actually demonstrated that they had, in fact, read it, I poked a little bit just to make sure that they had imbued some of the lessons in that book in a sort of heartfelt way. And I can tell you all that not only had Secretary Bonner read the book, but she had by far the most interesting insights of anybody I talked to about what it said, what it meant, and how we ought to be thinking about creating community opportunities for older Americans and citizens as they age. And as I travel around the Commonwealth, and Karen Polito, the Lieutenant Governor, and I get out a lot, I can tell you that over and over and over again, what we hear from almost everybody we deal with in the elder services and the elder community generally is how much people love the work that Alice Bonner is doing and how thrilled they are to have her serving in state government. So thank you very much, Alice. And I also want to thank the folks at Hebrew Senior Life who are getting the big award tonight. And I remember Hebrew Senior Life back when they were just, what the hell was it? I'm going back to like the mid-1990s now, and Maury May. Hebrew Rehab, thank you very much. There you go. Honest to God, there's never been, in my view, an organization that's more creative and more thoughtful about thinking about the next act and the next act and the next act and the next act when it comes to creating service models for seniors in many respects than Hebrew Senior Life. And Maury, you know, a lot of people, one of the things about state government is what everybody wants to do in state government is they always want to take whatever it is you're doing and fit it into a box. And the reason they want to fit it into a box is perfectly understandable because it's a big organization, it's a big rig, there's a ton of people you're working with and dealing with every single day, and what you want to do is be able to take them and fit them into one of your boxes so that you can say, yes, they do this, right? And then you can say, and these people, they do this, and these people, they do this. And that's really interesting, and it's really, and I get it, but one of the great things about Hebrew Rehab then and Hebrew Senior Life now is they've never really fit into anybody's box. They do a lot of different things, and they do a lot of different things because they are always thinking about the population that they're serving. And I think in some respects when Byron and Tom talk about Senior Link didn't really fit into a box either when you guys got started. And you're now established enough that there's a box that's all for you, all right, in the way that the state's organized and some of the other states operate. But when we think about serving almost any population, but especially the senior population, this ability to get outside the box, all right, and to think differently about how is technology changing the way we think about serving people who are seniors. How does the fact that so many people are continuing to work well into their 70s and in some cases their 80s affect the way we think about how we serve seniors? How does the capacity of society to incorporate into a very different kind of demographic where I'm 60, I'm smack dab in the middle of the baby boom generation. So you've got all these folks between the ages of 50 and 70 who make up the baby boom generation who are never going to get old and never stop working and are never going to stop running marathons and all the rest. And their parents, in many cases, are still alive. Hoorah! This is an enormously complicated, challenging, and invigorating time and opportunity for all of us as we try to come up with the next act and the next set of models to ensure that people, as they age, continue to be able to be vibrant, constructive, and positive participants in their life and in their community. And I think it's an enormous challenge, and it's one that I was thrilled to have Pioneer Institute take on this year. And as somebody who is constantly amazed by the ideas that Pioneer generates, especially through this Better Government competition, I'm looking forward to hearing everything about the winners tonight. And I can just say, Secretary Bonner, you may get a text from me at some point during the course that says, gee, that's a really interesting idea. What do you think? And the right answer to that is yes. I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.